Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are musician, radio host Sergio Mielniczenko and artist-director of Jacaranda, Patrick Scott. Radio host, documentarian, producer, and musician Sergio Mielniczenko was born and raised in Sao Paulo, Brazil. He studied conducting and composing in his country, then came to Cal State University Northridge for his Bachelor of Arts in Broadcasting. And then he earned a Recording Arts and Science certificate at UCLA. And from UCLA, Sergio, where did you go?
You know, being involved with Brazilian music for so many years that even if I didn't want to, I became a Brazilian music specialist. So I lectured. I had a course at UCLA years later.
Oh, you did? You taught?
On Brazilian music. And I've been concentrating all these years in several different radio shows, multimedia presentations around town. And that's so.
I like the story when you said you first came to visit LA. I think you told it the other night on NPR. You first came to visit LA and you found yourself in Hollywood.
Absolutely.
And then you ran into
Sergio Mendes.
Which
right?
is like,
yeah, like we became friends since then, but I never met Sergio Mendes by chance again in my life.
Ever. And did you meet him in Brazil?
Not really. No, of course not. Yeah, it was in LA, yeah. And I thought that was normal.
To just run into all these people?
Yes, a lot of Brazilian composers. At the time there was a nightclub called the Brazilian Bolsa on Vine Street. And everybody showed up, and most of great names in Brazilian music and others were there.
And so that was that your first time? I mean, were you totally taken by LA?
Yes, I thought Hollywood would be a place with camera cranes and artists walking around and strolling on Hollywood Boulevard. But actually I found all these great musicians, Americans and Brazilians, in Hollywood. And that was a pure chance. It was something magical.
Then how did you decide to start a radio show? You were teaching, you were doing a lot of different things.
First I was on my second year of television, radio, and film at Northridge. And then I was working at the consulate already.
Oh, you were at the Brazilian consulate?
Yes, the Brazilian consulate, and still am.
Oh, still?
Yes, and I think I will.
Being bad, the consul general gets changed every 3 or 4 years, but you don't.
I don't, yeah, because of what I do. And then they offered, would you like to do a Brazilian music radio show? I had the background. I was studying broadcasting. I said, in my mind I said, maybe, but I said yes. And we did.
Was it their idea?
Was it an opportunity?
I see.
Somebody from Loyola offered the consul general's wife the time, and she said, let me take it back to the consulate. And we started. We only had 5 albums, 10 vinyl albums. It was just the beginning. Yeah, and then we built up. We have thousands of CDs and albums now.
It takes a woman.
It takes a woman to inspire.
It takes a woman to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they came to the wife. They didn't come to him, which is so great.
Yes, that's true.
And she followed through. And so was it broadcast from the consulate?
No, first we used to go there live
to Loyola Marymount?
To KXLU, 88.9 FM. We did for a while. Because I was studying already radio television, I said it would be a great idea, instead of doing live and not having the actual program, to create a small studio and start recording. So we have an archive.
So you're recording what? Recording
the shows.
Recording your own shows.
And then by chance again, an engineer came by mistake to my office, and he said, "Wow, you're doing this radio show here. Why don't you offer this to National Public Radio?" And went on the satellite, and the first week we already had like 20 radio stations around the country.
Just by chance he came by?
By chance, yeah.
And you were just playing music on that show.
Yeah.
Were you doing interviews?
A few. In the beginning, I did Moacir Santos, a fantastic conductor, arranger, major name in Brazilian music, was living here. I did eventually Sergio Mendes.
Oh,
I went back to him and I said, "I'm the guy that we met at the club. Now,
Is that right?
now we have a radio show." He said, "Okay, come over." And I did. I went to his house.
So you did recordings or you did interviews on site, not always in the studio?
And sometimes I would go to, with a little cassette recorder.
you?
Yeah, and record interviews, yes.
And it worked okay?
Beautiful.
It worked okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, is there a big Brazilian diaspora here?
Growing.
Oh.
I think it's hard to tell how many Brazilians are in Southern California, but thousands. It's not one of the largest communities, but yes.
Of course, it's different because you speak Portuguese, and you don't fit into that Latin.
Because we speak Portuguese, and our music is so different and unique.
It is different.
It becomes a Brazilian civilization.
Who else have you had on the show?
Oh my God, hundreds of people.
But only Brazilians?
No. Then I have the Global Village on KPFK.
Oh, let's talk about that.
And
too.
that is an open format.
I see. So
then
that's a
jazz, indie rock. Very soon I'll be interviewing Giovanotti, who is a big name
in Italy, right?
in Italy. In jazz, so many people: Herbie Hancock, George Duke.
They all come to the
yes,
studio?
to the studio.
And where's that studio? In Hollywood?
It's in Studio City.
Studio City.
Cahuenga.
I see.
Herb Albert and Lonnie Hall. Sergio Mendes went back many times.
For Global.
Yes.
I
yes.
see. Is it, do you listen to the culture of, or do we as listeners listen to the culture, or is it just dance music, or what kind
It's
of
everything.
a mix?
It's everything. For instance, this week I interviewed Gilberto Gil,
Oh,
who was
really?
a musician that in '68 came up with a group of musicians, a movement called Tropicalismo. Went
The
into
girl from Empanada.
almost.
Almost?
No, he did the.
Oh, Gilberto Gil was different.
He's thinking of João Gilberto.
I was.
Right.
Well, they're all the
João
same.
Gilberto is one that nobody can interview. He's on the list of not possible.
Yes, do not. But this is good. Okay.
But Gilberto Gil eventually, during the dictatorship in Brazil, he was in exile in London, came back, later became the Minister of Culture of Brazil twice, which is a beautiful story.
Really?
He's performing this week at Disney Hall.
Is that right?
Yes.
So he brings his musicians with him?
Absolutely, yes.
And you're not just once a week then. If you have two shows that you have to do.
I have Fridays, Global Village on KPFK, 90.7 FM. Saturdays and Sundays I have the Brazilian Hour, 88.9. I also have an online radio station called One Globe Radio, onegloberadio.com. Open format, more indie, and I invite guests like DJs.
Oh, I see.
And I
To
also
pick music?
They program and host.
Oh, they
And
do?
yes, it's open.
So you're producing that?
Yes, and also I do Mohik Radio, which is indie rock.
Oh, how much time does it take to prepare if you're doing the show?
I don't sleep.
Do you produce it yourself? Do you
Yes.
find the people and
Yes.
call because it's much more
It is.
personal that way.
Yes,
And
like
they
you.
know you, like me.
Like you,
Li-
yes.
And the other thing is, though, do you still put in time at the consulate
Every day.
every day?
I'm there every day. We have a studio, a beautiful studio. We have a full-fledged radio studio where we can do recordings, and it's state-of-the-art.
Wow.
Because
Where is it? In what
Right
part
in
of town?
Beverly Hills.
It's in Beverly
It's a
Hills.
corner of La Cienega and Wilshire.
Oh, it is.
Like nearby here.
Very close.
Yeah.
So you're preparing from there. You're all around the city too. If you're doing interviews, do you still write music?
Not as much, but whenever I have a chance, a guitar, a reason or not, I write songs. I've written songs for film. I wrote 3 songs for a film called Bed and Breakfast,
Oh yes.
which it's on Netflix and in Brazil.
And what do you use to write? Do you use an instrument?
Guitar, acoustic guitar,
Oh, you use guitar.
violão.
And what did you study as a child? Were you a study
Guitar.
music?
I
guitar.
started with electric guitar, believe it or not. Those were the days that every kid
And
wanted
a little kid?
I was 14.
Well, teenager with it.
Yeah, electric guitar, then I played 12-string guitar, then I went into acoustic guitar, and then as you mentioned, I studied composition, and then I
Right.
transferred to Northridge to study music, but then I looked at television, I said, I like it. And I studied television, and then end up with radio.
And then that came with that.
Right.
Do you still get a chance to conduct?
I haven't conducted. I really would have to have studied so much more.
Oh, you never went
No.
all the way?
No.
Oh,
I left Brazil
oh.
on my 2nd year. I was exposed. I love classical music, but
Oh.
I never really did. Yes.
I thought you were conducting too.
No,
You
no,
never
I was 19.
Yeah, when you
Not to say that you cannot conduct at 19, because they do, right?
yeah, but they start early.
Start very
They start
early,
early. That's
yes.
why they're conducting at 19.
Absolutely.
When you're in the cultural division of the Brazilian consulate in Los Angeles, what programs do they have to draw in their people or other people?
The cultural department of the Brazilian consulate, we deal in music, Brazilian films, fine arts, literature, and more recently we have a sector within a sector which helps and guides Brazilian students in a high education level coming to a large area, including Los Angeles. So very recently we had 80 students being part of a meeting. So
They come from Brazil and they meet with your consul general?
And we met to guide them because they're just beginning a course in the United States. It's all over the United States. The Brazilian government brings them here, and they are in all different fields.
They're in the arts or in
Arts,
science?
music, science, everything. And in all different types of universities, Cal State, UC, private.
Where do they live with
Usually in the university, dorms.
Oh, they live at
or
the schools
yes,
usually.
live at the schools,
I see.
yes.
But it's not like an exchange where a family takes a family.
Not at that level, I don't believe so.
They're
Yes.
above that
yes,
at that point.
Yes.
Do people go to the consulate then to hear
Sure, we
things?
have a gallery,
Oh,
an art gallery
oh.
ongoing. We promote some concerts.
Yeah, that's what I wondered, do
Small
they?
music concerts.
That's kind of where I thought you were conducting.
I could.
A small group.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's a fantastic
Yeah.
venue for everyone.
Yes, it's a beautiful. I think it's a model consulate in the United States. Very modern.
Really?
Very modern. We are at the Flint building,
Oh yeah,
Suite 300. We take the whole floor. It's a state of the art.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you came and told us about all of that.
I'm glad to be here.
And thank you so
Yeah.
much.
All right, my
And
pleasure.
don't go away. We'll be right back with Patrick Scott, whom I think does compose and conduct.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. That was great.
I'm so glad you came. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm here with our guest, Patrick Scott, the artistic director of Jacaranda, who was born in Canada and raised in the U.S. They say the U.S. because he was in several states. He attended Arizona State University in an experimental art program for gifted teens and the Kachina School of Art in Phoenix. He graduated cum laude from UC Irvine with awards in painting, and he also thrived in the dance and theater design department, where Patrick went on to found what, Eyes Wide Open?
Yes.
As opposed to Eyes Closed, like Pina Bausch. When I kept thinking of Eyes Wide Open, I kept thinking of Pina Bausch, who dance. They dance on stage all with their eyes
Often,
closed.
yeah.
So how did that come about? You also did a lot of opera. Let me just go on: opera, costume design, and was it all out of UCI?
Well, UCI, it was very young as a school then, and so it was really progressive, and they had only practicing professionals in all the faculty positions in the art department.
Well, that was fabulous.
Incredible. So, my teachers were Robert Irwin and Ed Moses, and when John Mason, the great sculptor of using ceramics, took a little leave, he was replaced by Kenneth Price.
Is that when Kenny came in?
Yeah, so I had a taste of Kenny's fantastic whimsical sensibility, and
But were you in the art department?
I was.
You were.
Yeah, but I had earlier. My sister and I were tap dancers as children, and we toured around, and we actually would tap dance at bowling alleys, and at the Orange County the Orange Fair in San Bernardino. This little.
What were you called?
It was just Patrick and Beverly Scott. We didn't have a little cutesy name, but we competed and we got prizes, and it was because she was taking semi-private lessons, and her semi-private person dropped out, and I had already been secretly putting her tap shoes on. So
were you the younger?
No, I was the older one.
Oh, so you were watching your little sister?
But it was sort of like, boys don't tap dance, but of course they do.
That's great. So where were you taking tap lessons?
Well, this was in Phoenix before we moved to Riverside.
I see.
And then that even though at the same time I was working on my Eagle Scout merit badges and all that stuff, which I did attain, I appeared in the opera and the ballet there, and studied ballet and modern dance, and came to UC Irvine as an honors English person intending to be in literature, and they said, oh, but you haven't taken the Subject A exam, which is like dumbbell English,
Right, yeah.
and you should probably take that, it'll be nothing. Well, I took it and I failed it, and they immediately took me out of this this accelerated program, and I had always been very interested in art, and so I just changed my major. And there were all these amazing people. And there was Eugene Loring, the legend of American dance. And so I enrolled in a dance class, and he gave me a scholarship to the American School of Dance.
Is that how, really?
Yeah, so for my summers, I and it was an amazing program. We had Javanese dance as well as, so I was doing all that.
It was a real global kind of thing.
Yeah, way back. We're talking in like 1969.
But let's go back even further. That gifted teen program. Here you are. You've gone through this gifted teen program, and you get to UCI and don't pass English. You can't. What is this?
I don't know. It must have been one of those testing things. I can't figure it out myself because I had a wonderful English teacher, and I wrote very well, and I still do write very well.
Otherwise you wouldn't be where you
I
are.
think it must have been my destiny not to be stuck in that.
It's probably true.
Yeah.
But just very quickly tell me what that gifted teen thing was.
Well, it was.
It was at
I was in the
Arizona
7th grade. I was in the 7th grade.
Fantastic.
And I have to say, for everybody out there, this is intense nostalgia about what once was and the glories of arts education in elementary school.
Yes.
We had a specialist named Juanita Clemens, who was part Native American, and she would come to every school every week. She had an extremely rigorous program that she laid out in the 3rd grade.
Oh, she would come and visit you?
She would do art classes with all the students.
That's what I mean, but she would come from the outside to come in?
Yeah, and very ambitious projects, and it was sequential from the 3rd grade to the 8th grade, because at that time, in Arizona, you left 8th grade, not 7th grade. And we did really amazing things. And she was She was a real bohemian with the crushed velvet skirts and the
Oh, those are
the
great.
turquoise, and she was a real character and so inspiring. And she was at that point, Frank Lloyd Wright's great Grady Gamage Auditorium was being built, and she was very interested in it and would sneak in and creep around and tell me these stories. And I, at that point, really wanted to be an architect. I really was fascinated with Taliesin.
You were going to be an architect, you're a dancer. You really covered the arts, didn't you?
I actually applied to the School of Architecture at USC and got a scholarship of $800. And my parents said, well, that's not enough. And I said, oh, okay. And I didn't know that you take the $800 and then you go here and you go there until you get enough to,
Right.
Yeah. But I
the
went to
other thing
Irvine
is,
instead.
It was probably, they were doing, SC was by the unit probably at that time, $24 a unit or something, which was like 12 when it started. And then it grew to be like it was. But maybe this teacher in her crushed velvet skirt was the inspiration for you to work in education, because you really gave back to the kids at in LA's Best.
Yes, LA's Best, absolutely. But before LA's Best, I have to talk about Humanitas, which was a high school reform program to integrate arts with other subject areas. This was back in the 80s, and it's still going. It's going really strongly. But the idea was that as art teachers' time and art teachers' qualifications were disappearing from the system, the other teachers needed to understand how important art was to thematic.
To bring it into their like history and math.
Yeah, so it was interdisciplinary team teaching.
Fabulous.
And I was hired to lead this cultural collaboratives, they called it. And because I had already shown myself pretty agile in working with organizations, I then figured out ways to have them all partner with us. So for example, when it was the 50th anniversary then of Kristallnacht, I knew that there would be organizations all over town dealing with this issue. So we looked at the emigre culture in Los Angeles, and this was 1988, with 2 architects, 2 filmmakers, 2 composers, and 2 writers.
And how'd you combine them?
Well, I got teachers to write biographical material about them. We put together an anthology, but we went on trips all over town. We went to the Schindler House. We went to screenings of Fritz Lang movies.
But that's what I always thought. I used to call it cross-pollination, to make sure that all the everyone mixes together and takes from each other.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you do at Jacaranda. So talk to me about that. You're not a trained musician.
I'm not a trained musician.
You're trained everything else.
That's right, everything but music. But this has now become my passion, and I think probably the 3rd or 4th act of my life is definitely devoted to the promotion of new and modern music and an appreciation of the entire traditions of music and how they are, bearing fruit. People somehow disconnect. In classical music, they disconnect the modern and the contemporary from everything else.
Well, do you do both contemporary and modern, contemporary and classical?
Well, yes.
At your program, tell us what it is. Tell us what Jacaranda is.
First of all, I have to tell you a story because you say Jacaranda and I say Jacaranda.
I know.
I'm a Canadian, and it's like pasta. They say pasta in Canada. But I got a call at 7:30 in the morning because somebody heard me on the radio interviewed about Jacaranda, and she was annoyed, and she said, "Why do you completely mispronounce this word over and over again? It's Jacaranda." And I said, "Well, actually, I think it's more complex than that." So we called and emailed all morning long, and I got on the computer and we Googled, and lo and behold, the tree, which is a beautiful blooming tree that comes out in the spring, and suddenly all of Los Angeles is transformed with this
purple
color right here, which is how we acquired the name, but we can talk about that later. It comes from the Amazon, and it was the Tupi Indians that it's an native word that migrated into Portuguese. So the correct pronunciation is Jacaranda.
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 Well, we don't call our jacaranda trees in front of our house that.
Jacaranda.
And when people used to say jacaranda, you go like, oh, that's just horrible to our ears. It's hard to hit. Anyway, what do you do at Jacaranda?
We are
Jacaranda.
we're a concert series that goes from October until this year. It's June 1. And they're like, each one is like a journey. The one that just happened on Saturday is a very good example. We started in Los Angeles in the year 2000 with a piano piece written by Esa-Pekka Salonen for the great pianist Gloria Chang. She performed it, and it's broken into two movements, mechanisma and organisma. So it's called dichotomy. So you get this idea of, okay, the urban, the natural. So then we move that through the story with Steve Reich's City Life, which is a depiction of Manhattan at its grittiest and most engaging and challenging. And the second half is a piece by Tobias Picker about the Galapagos Islands.
Fantastic.
We have a little stop in the Bahamas on our way down there with Island Prelude by Joan Tower. So this was really a program of music from the 80s, 90s, and the early part of the 2000s.
And it's in a different kind of a venue. It's not an auditorium. It's not a hall, I should say.
No, it has a lot of best qualities of a hall. It's First Presbyterian Church of Santa Monica, which was renovated in 2006 and 7 to add a balcony. And the space is, perhaps for some people, it's a little on the resonant side. I like that sound. I like that wet sound because to me it's more physical and more intense. And so when people come to Jacaranda, it's very intimate and it's very direct, and the sound is glorious.
And so how often do you
Almost
play?
every month.
Every month you have a different kind of a program. Do you ever commission new work?
Well, we were just given a fantastic opportunity with a new project with the LA Philharmonic. We've been partnering them for several years, doing little festivals together, but this time they're doing a week devoted to Hungary's most important composer. His name is Péter Eötvös, E-O-T-V-O-S, with little umlauts over the O's. And they're going to do a whole week devoted to him, but it's going to start with our program in Santa Monica on Saturday, January 12th. And we are commissioner with 4 distinguished festivals in Europe, Aldeburgh Festival in London, 2 festivals in Germany and 1 in France.
So you're all doing the same tribute.
Well, we're each contributing money to this new work, and we will give it its U.S. premiere. And bless his heart, Mr. Eötvös has agreed to conduct the premiere.
Oh, great!
And and has donated his fee because we're not as wealthy as the Los Angeles Philharmonic.
Oh, that'll be something for us to look forward to.
Well, and this has 8 singers, 8 wind players, and each wind player is paired with each singer, percussion and amplified accordion.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That gives us a real excitement to look forward to, and I thank you so much for coming and for artistic directing the Jacaranda.
Music at the edge, and we're just like half a block from the ocean, so that makes us at the edge aesthetically, culturally, and physically on the edge of the Pacific Ocean.
Well said. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thanks for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles, JAQUINN1 at AOL.com. See you next time.